Hello and welcome. Barack Obama came into office talking about a new beginning between the US and the Arab world. But how much will really change as the Middle East continues to dramatically reshape itself politically? One crucial issue Washington needed to address was Israel's illegal settlements. Here's what President Obama said during his Cairo speech in 2009.
The United States does not accept the legitimacy of continued Israeli settlements. This construction violates previous agreements and undermines efforts to achieve peace. It is time for these settlements to stop.
And yet, less than 2 years after that speech, the Obama administration used its first UN Security Council veto to block a resolution declaring Israeli settlements illegal.
The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the Council.
Many observers believe that voting for the resolution would have well served U.S. interests during a very crucial moment in the Middle East, as the Palestinian issue has always united Arabs. So today we ask, has the U.S. missed an opportunity yet again to engage constructively in the Middle East? The phone lines will open in a little while, but for now you can join the discussion with your questions and comments via email and text messaging. Well, joining me on the show is Zalmay Khalilzad, the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. We'll be talking to Dr. Khalilzad in just a few minutes. But first, I had a chance to talk a short while ago with the world-renowned British-Pakistani author and critic Tariq Ali. I began by asking him how similar he found the Middle East policies of the Obama administration to those of the former U.S. President George W. Bush, particularly when it comes to the Palestinians.
Well, I think they're very similar. As far as Israel is concerned, there's been no change at all. And essentially what Obama is doing in Israel-Palestine is exactly the same as Bush, forcing the PLO to accept everything that the Israelis are asking for. As AlJazeera has already revealed in the Palestine papers, something that people like myself had been saying for a long time, that the PLO leadership has capitulated totally and completely. And I really wouldn't be surprised if what we're seeing elsewhere in the Arab world, in Cairo, in Tripoli, in Tunis, in Sana'a, doesn't spread to Ramallah soon, because I think that ordinary Palestinians are fed up with their leadership and the repression that has been meted out to them. And on that, Obama and the Israelis, like Bush and the Israelis, are at one.
Now, when we last spoke, we talked about your book, The Obama Syndrome, your recent book, and in that you were saying how you were very critical of the Obama administration's continuation of the Bush policies on Iraq and Afghanistan, saying that really the mood music had changed and there was a sugarcoating. Has there even been an effort to sugarcoat what's happening with the Israeli-Palestinian situation?
None at all. There's been no attempt to sugarcoat the Israeli policies. And given what is going on in the Arab world today, where huge mass popular movements for democracy are toppling dictators that have been backed by the West, the argument that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East is proving to be total and complete nonsense. The argument that the Arab people are not interested in democracy, that Muslims are genetically incapable of liking democracy because of their religion, is shown to be the complete nonsense and gibberish that it was when the neocons were spouting it. And it's the same gibberish when the Israelis spout it. I mean, the Israeli press and media was the most staunch supporters of Mubarak, put enormous pressure on Obama not to allow Mubarak to be removed, but there was nothing any American president could have done. So gradually, what the Arab people are doing is exposing Israeli pretensions in the region. The Israelis used to say to Washington, "We'll be your base forever, for eternity, in this heart of darkness that is the Arab world." Well, if things carry on going as they are, the only heart of darkness in the Arab world will be Israel.
Now, what, if any, consequence do you expect from the recent veto on Israeli settlements by the U.S. when back in 2009, Barack Obama said in Cairo, well, we're totally against the idea of any more Israeli settlements?
Nothing much is going to change on that, Riz. You know, they say one thing one day, another thing the other day. Essentially, what the Israelis have done is given token support to American advice, which is weak, as we know, in any case, and carried on disregarding any real instructions they may or may not be getting from Washington. And the number of settlements that have been built and are still being built on the West Bank and in the occupied territories makes the idea of a two-state solution laughable, a farce. It's not going to happen because it can't happen. It can't happen physically because of what the Israelis have been up to. So the Israeli leadership may not like to hear this, but essentially what they have done is made a single state in Israel-Palestine inevitable over the next decades.
It's a shame. It seems like there was a critical juncture here, an opportunity for the US to send the right kind of message to the Arab and Muslim world about the issue of the settlements, to show perhaps a little more solidarity with what's happening in the Middle East.
I don't think they're capable of that. For some reason, they regard at the moment Israeli and American interests in the region as exactly one and the same. And that certainly helps and suits the Israelis, but it is now very damaging to any American administration that rules, because the argument which they've used till now is that the Arab world is led by dictators and unrepresentative kings, and we have to deal with the people we see. Well, the Arab people are now demanding democracy in Bahrain as well as in Egypt and Algeria and the Yemen. And who is denying them this? The people who are denying them this are the militaries. Who backs the militaries? In the case of Egypt, the United States. In the case of Tunisia, the French, backed by the United States. So we see a very clear situation now in the Middle East where the masses want democracy, sections of the army want democracy, and the democracy is being denied to the people. They're being told to wait, obviously, so that some what they call orderly transition can be agreed, because they are fearful in the West that if the Arab people are allowed to vote and choose their own governments, the governments might not do the bidding of the West. And what we're seeing in Libya today, I mean, only several months ago, British governments were knocking on the doors of the Libyan government, pleading for money, pleading with them to buy British arms, British trade. British companies were going. Gaddafi was funding the Global Governance Institute of the London School of Economics. All this was going on regardless of the situation in Libya and the conditions of the people of that country. That too has imploded now. So the Arab world is witnessing a second wave of democratic and national revolutions in which they want both democracy, they want to break with neo-colonial rule, and they want to determine their own futures. And this is a very exciting time for the region. And if the Europeans and the Americans were intelligent, this is the time they would put real pressure on Israel and threaten that country with sanctions.
Now, it's interesting because we had an email, if I could put to you, that came in from Karachi, from Pakistan, from Ahmed Ali Birjarani, who says, the US needs to show that it is friendly to the people. It has no choice but to support the newly forming democratic governments across the Middle East. Do you think that's the case?
Well, I think the